Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Al Getler here from northwestern Vermont, where I'm happy to say the sun is shining today. That's a good thing. How are you doing? How was your weekend? Ready for, excuse me, goodness. As my guest will tell you, I just took some protein, some nuts, and now I'm paying the price. There you go. Getting all choked up over it. Well, listen, anyway, you hope your week is going well so far. Exciting week, lots of things happening. I'm not going to jump entirely into what's happening, but my guest is in a location that will probably raise that subject in a few minutes. So we'll talk about that. Hey, I want to talk about something else before I bring my guest out, and that is today is the launch of a book. In fact, I'm literally looking outside the window waiting for the UPS truck to show up. There's a new book out. It's called Business Made Simple by a guy named Donald Miller. Donald is, you might know him from StoryBrand. StoryBrand is a great way to go out and plan the way you plan your messaging for your business, marketing wise, otherwise. In fact, our website for ANC is a StoryBrand website using that theory. So I'd recommend, but let me tell you why this book is cool. The book is broken up into 60 segments. So call them chapters if you want to, but they're actually segments. And the reason why they're called segments is Donald will present information in the book, and then you sign up cleverly for videos that you receive every day. As you finish a segment, you receive a video in your inbox that you watch that coincides with the book. And the theory is that in 60 days, you will go through an entire business education with the book Business Made Simple. You can also go to businessmadesimple.com. You can listen to the podcast, Business Made Simple, and you'll find a lot of great information. So let me be clear. I am not getting anything for endorsing this. I bought the book on Amazon. When I've had a chance to read it, I'll come back and talk about it. I have just downloaded the Audible version of it and listened to the introduction and the first chapter. As usual, Donald has done a great job with great content. So I'll recommend that to you today. We'll come back and talk about that some other time. And maybe, just maybe, we'll get either Donald or JJ Peterson or, one of the other Kyla on here or somebody like that, to talk about the book. So, yeah, go ahead and pick that up. Amazon right now, Business Made Simple, the book. So let's transition to our guest. I am excited about having this guest on here today because every time I see one of her posts on LinkedIn, I get excited. First of all, I get excited because she's great at what she does when she posts on LinkedIn. But then I get excited because I follow the post and I see how fast. I know it sounds like I'm a creeper, right? But I follow how fast things kind of grow with comments. And let me bring her on here right now. Her name is Abby Wilson, and Abby does some fantastic work helping people develop their website and getting that conversion message correct. So, Abby, welcome to my live stream.
Thanks for having me.
I saw you laughing because I was joking there in the beginning because you know exactly what happened. I had some almonds, I had some walnuts, way too close to when we started. And yeah, so that's what happens. It's live, right? That's why it's called live. So, Abby, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I am doing really well. Good to see your smiling face. And here's where it happens. I always start this off. Tell everybody where we are talking to you from.
So I live in Maryland, just outside of DC, about a 10-minute drive from the border. So yeah.
Yep. We were just talking about that getting into DC could be a bit of a challenge this week. If you're watching this video after the fact, this is inauguration week, and Abby lives in the DC area. So we'll just leave it at that, but that's good. So Abby, I want to kind of follow your journey real quickly as to where you came today. I know in the other room, there's a little one sleeping, so we have a limited amount of time to get this done. How old is the baby?
1.5.
1.5. Good deal. Yeah. And it sounds like your mom, like my mom, my wife was 2 naps a day. Is that what you're doing? 2 naps or 1?
She used to take 2, but now she's down to 1.
Now to 1. Okay. I gotcha. All right. So you got to get all that work done during that nap. So Abby, take us on your journey. How did you end up where you are today doing what you do?
Sure. So I studied biochem in college, and I took a class in web development as an elective, and I didn't really think much of it. It was an easy A, but I really, really liked it. When I graduated, though, I didn't think of it as a career. I moved on into healthcare, which is what I wanted to do. I was in administration. And then I got married, found out we were going to have a baby, and I wanted to have a job that would give me the flexibility to maintain my own schedule. And so I was just looking online for resources, figuring out what I could do. And I discovered freelance web development. I was like, wait a minute, I know how to develop websites. So I took some time to brush up on my skills. In the meantime, I also discovered a copywriting course that gave me that skill as well. So now, as a freelance web developer, I'm able to not just design and develop the websites, but I also create the copy that goes on the websites and really helps with the conversion. So that's, in a very brief nutshell, how I am where I am today.
You had to say nutshell, huh? Okay.
Yeah.
So, you found yourself kind of finding a sweet spot almost by accident. Would that be fair to say?
Very much by accident. Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. You've got a natural knack for grabbing a message and in very few words, making it happen. I want to put up here on the screen 2 of your LinkedIn posts. The one on the left, you just simply ask a question about text marketing, text message becoming a marketing, possibility, and 76 comments, in a very short period of time. For anybody that's really on LinkedIn as much as we probably are, that's pretty awesome to have that many comments that quickly. And tell me how you just come up with that's just, I don't even think you had a graphic on that. No, you just had a question, How do you come up with your subject? What makes something like that tick with in this case, your connections the way you did?
So my goal on LinkedIn is to be known as a web developer and a copywriter and to be a trusted source for those skills. In order to do that, I have content buckets so that I don't talk about anything and everything. I talk specifically about websites, a little bit about branding and copywriting. And that narrowing down the scope of my content really helps me to create the content. So that's one thing. I also, however, like to break it up with some more kind of personal or laid back posts on the weekend. So the post that you just brought up with the SMS marketing, it was literally just a conversation I was having. That quote is from my husband. We were talking and that came up and I'm like, that'd be a great LinkedIn post. So because I've been creating content on LinkedIn for, I don't know, over 6 months now on a very almost daily basis, you start to think in a different way. Like in your regular day-to-day life, you're having a conversation with someone, you're like, oh, that'll make a great LinkedIn post. So I just wrote it down. That was that very same day, but I have a note on my phone with post ideas from weeks and months ago that I could reach out to. So yeah, those are how I figure out the content ideas. And then as far as getting people's attention, it's really about the hook. So the first line in your post, that headline, has to really make people stop and it has to make people want to keep reading. So I really take a lot of time to think about, okay, is this sentence, would I stop to scroll? Would I stop scrolling if I were to see that headline on my LinkedIn feed?
Okay. So really you're your first audience. You just figure out what's going to make you stop. And then the other thing that you do really well is you always seem to grab a piece of art or a GIF or piece of video that just kind of plays and repeats and grabs your attention, but it goes very well with the post. So for instance, why did you choose what you chose on the screen here right now, which really just is this guy moving slightly? I could have had it live, but what is your unique thing? What was your motivation behind picking that as content?
That's a tricky one. So that post, if I was looking at it correctly, the headline is the key to LinkedIn content is trying to find the gap. And then the rest was talking about what is unique about you. And that's what you need to focus on. Right. And well, there's no exact science to it. It's just more of an art. So I'll go on either Giphy.com or Tenor.com. And the first thing I started looking for was gap. I'm like, okay, is there a funny GIF that involves gap? No, I couldn't find anything. So the next thing I went for was unique. And that one came up. And it just so happened to work out. I tend to save them. So I have literally dozens of GIFs in my downloads folder on my MacBook that I can just like reach out to if I ever need something. So that's typically how it goes. I just think it's helpful to grab people's attention. Again, like most people on LinkedIn tend to play it, don't have a lot of video or images. It's a very text heavy social media platform. So having an entertaining, engaging, or funny GIF is just another way to get people to pause.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it's a science. Obviously, there's science and art to it, of course, as well. So that makes, a huge difference for sure. So, but, posting on LinkedIn is not your job. It's what you do to attract people to what you do. So let me share with our audience here your website and tell us a bit about what Tailor Framed is about. And most especially, I love the name. Tell us where the name came from and then a bit about what you do with Tailor Framed.
Sure. So I was watching a YouTube video on branding and I didn't even finish the video, but in the beginning, they were talking about how your brand really has to reflect your company, like not your company, I'm sorry, how your brand has to really reflect your customers and their point of view. So you want to look at your company from an external third party point of view, not only from your own internal point of view. So for me, I was thinking, okay, if someone sees the name of my agency, what do I want them to think? Okay, like what are the main pillars of my brand? And one of them is just that there's a custom feel to it, right? A lot of times with websites, they are cookie cutter. Like if you have, for example, a third-party logistics company, for example, a lot of the websites in that industry are going to look very similar. Same with like B2B, SaaS websites. They just kind of, they're cookie cutter, they're generic. And I wanted to come in and change that. I wanted to create websites that were unique. So that's where I got the idea, tailor. That's where I got that, like as in something was tailor made. And then I'm thinking, okay, I'm doing websites and the blueprint for a website is a wireframe. And so that's how I came up with the name for Tailor Framed. And the domain was available. So I was like, well, this is a sign. So it wasn't available as one word, but it was available with the dash in the middle. So I said, I'll take it.
Yeah.
But that's how I got the name. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that makes perfect sense too, of course, because, planning a website takes an incredible amount of time. And, I commend you because half the battle is framing it. The other half is getting the content from the person that you're going to build the website for, which between words and photos and videos, it's kind of difficult, but yeah. So tailor is a great word for that because it is like kind of taking a fine suit or outfit and giving that tailored. So I totally get it. So one of the things I noticed on your website, and let me go back to what, and we'll jump into really what the crux of what you really talk about is, and that is that high traffic, but low conversion. So this is really about conversions. Can you explain to everybody what are conversions in case someone's not familiar, not to talk down to the audience, but what's a conversion once they come to a website and why is it important?
Sure. So a conversion, it can look different depending on the industry you're in, but it's usually the last step. So it could be purchasing something, it could be scheduling a demo, it could be reaching out to the consultant, but it's usually like that final step in the buyer journey where there's a transaction is about to happen. That would be like a primary conversion, but there are also secondary conversions that are more low commitment. For example, let me join this newsletter or looking at a blog or something along those lines. So that is in a nutshell what that is.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that's something that a lot of people miss about their websites is that, it's great to attract people, but you've got to get people to act and do something. And we'll look at a website in a minute here that you've got a number of entries into people reaching out. I love this. Here's a comment from Daya, who was one of my guests last week. He says, I think I need to reach out to Abby, Al. And Daya, I just told him that in our message box. And yes, she is great at what she does and grabs messaging. And I know Dai is going through, he just launched a podcast and wants to retool his website. So sounds like you two should talk. Absolutely. So yeah, but good stuff. So let's talk about a website and one that you've done here. This is also one of my previous guests, which I kind of like. We're a close-knit circle. I always do mention, or I try to mention once in a while, Abby and I met in a LinkedIn based group that meets every Friday on a basis of using Zoom and a guest speaker. Abby was one of our guest speakers. And I realized with the baby, that's not always the most convenient time to be on with us. But it's a great way to meet people. And I've said to people throughout the pandemic, don't stop networking. It doesn't mean you have to stop networking professionally, especially professionally, to get out there and keep the brand going. So let me put up one of the sites that you did for one of our members. His name is Mike Verrett. He was my guest last week. And Mike's website is very, very clean, but without, kind of me kind of blah, blah, blahing through it. Tell us about this website, why it's so clean, and how you came up with a message. And I think I can say politely without disrespect, Mike is a guy with a lot of words.
Yeah.
He's a content-filled person. He's a great talker. But how do you boil down a Mike Verrett to a website like this? So take us through it.
Okay, so Mike, after my guest presentation on the networking group, Mike reached out to me and said, hey, look at my website. I think you can help me out. So we started working together on it. And what I like to do with the clients is get an idea for the brand and get an idea for the customer. And essentially that looks like just a one-on-one Zoom Google Meet conversation with them. With Mike, it was a little over an hour. It was quite a while. Basically asking all kinds of questions like, who are your customers? Why did you get into this field? What is the transformation that people are seeking? Why do people choose you over other consultants? So I ask a few open-ended questions in order to get a lot of information that I can then narrow down and create a website like this. So that's the first step, just talking to the client, figuring out the brand. Once I have that story together, then I put it on a document, I go through it, and I use a specific format when I'm creating homepages. For Mike's website, we decided to keep it simple and just go with a one-page website. And the key call to action on the website was to book a clarity call. So that was the primary conversion for Mike's website.
So right out of the gate, I mean, you've got, 2 entry points right here. Where I can click those in a moment, but I want to go through the page first. But then you have a very simple introduction. Hi, my name is Mike. Really clean, really simple. The thing that hits me here, of course, is the highlight is I don't need to read the rest. 20 years of marketing, amazing brands. And of course, the next thing I want to know, what brands, Mike? Well, there they are. Very cleanly, there they are. Black and white reverses, nothing super fancy from the standpoint of, there's no animations, there's nothing moving, and they are all brands that we recognize. Most people recognize. But then, the problem, marketing is hard, right? Which I really love that as an entry point. It most certainly is hard. And so, that's what I love about the way you did this, that you identified the problem. Now I want to read more. Tell me why it's hard. Tell me how you're going to solve my problem. So really well done that way. And you do something else too that a lot of people forget about, Abby, and that is you have recommendations. You have people talking about Mike's work. Tell us why that is so important.
People care more about what their peers think about you than what you think about you, because ultimately you're biased, right? So they want to know if your ideal customers are in marketing, are other people in marketing do they also approve of you? Do they are they on board with what you're doing? So that was why I had that testimony on there. And another thing that I like to do when I'm creating particularly the copy for websites is to talk to customers. Either I send out surveys or I just do a one-on-one interview. And in that case, I did a quick 15-minute interview with one of Mike's recent clients, and she just naturally said that. And I was like, okay, I took that, shortened it, put it in the website, and I think it works really well. The thing with testimonials is you want them not to just say, this is an amazing service. You want them to talk about why.
Yeah.
What makes it special? What makes it unique? And she said that in a very succinct way that made it easy to just package that and put it as a testimonial on his website. So, yeah.
Yeah, kind of fun when the copy writes itself that way, huh?
Oh, totally, yeah. Most of the copy and this is how I write copy in general, is I don't copy is not written. Copy is assembled. So
Oh, I love that.
the headline, if you scroll all the way back to the top of the website where it says talk about your business in a way that makes people say, tell me more. Mike literally said that. I didn't have to think about it. He said it. I'm like, oh, that's a headline right there. So I just put it on the website, right? So people, if you're asking the right questions, if you're really paying attention, if you're listening, if you're recording it, you don't want to be scribbling notes the whole time. You just want to record it.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to get great copy. And the key is not to filter or water it down. You want it to sound exactly like they were speaking. That's my goal with a copy. If you read it and it feels like someone wrote it, you did it wrong. Like, you want it to feel like it's a conversation. Like, oh, someone would actually say, like, marketing is hard, especially when it's for your business. Like, that's something that Mike would say, right? Because it's just him and it's not like this big agency vibe. I wanted the website to have more of a personal feel to it. And so using words and using Kara's words really helped me to achieve that and just have a very casual kind of vibe on the website.
Yeah, no, I see that. And that does reflect who Mike is too. And I love how you said what you just said. I mean, it creates itself if you listen. The old deal of, 2 ears, one mouth. I forget that one all the time, but then again, I talk. But then I like this. I really like this a lot. So now you've taken the mystery out of it. Here's how it works. It's a 3-step process, seems so simple. Why would I not go ahead and click this button and schedule a clarity call? Great stuff. Great stuff.
Yep. I love to do that. And this is something that I got from Don Miller's book, Story Brand.
Yes.
Where, he talks about having a simple 3 to 4 step action plan that you're calling your customers to do.
Yep.
And you want to have it somewhere that's out in the open. So there's no guessing. Like me, I'm very distrustful of calls to action and buttons on the internet. It's like, okay, what will happen if I click on this? Like, what is the process? You don't want your customers to be in the blind and be in the dark. So having this clear, simple, laid out plan is going to invoke more trust.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. And I do think that is a big barrier to a lot on the internet today, is just building enough trust to act. Even when someone has a quote unquote free PDF, and it's content that I want, I probably take a good 30 seconds before I decide to give them my email address and move forward with that, because I know that starts a relationship, and then I have to unsubscribe. Which we all battle over, right? But unsubscribing, I mean, I think it was actually Donald Miller. Boy, this has become the Donald Miller show. But who somebody pointed out, let's just say it was Donald Miller, that unsubscribes are not a bad thing, because you're narrowing down your audience, like you said. You're getting to the people that really want to hear what you have to say, and that's okay. The people that welcome you into their inbox and want to read your content every day. That's awesome. Well, I don't want to leave us hanging here. Let's get to the end of the website too, just to show folks, finally, there's man himself, and a way to reach him. So I didn't ask, I kind of kicked myself at the end of the conversation on our live stream last week. Did you help him create the butterfly logo, or is that something that he brought with him to the conversation?
That's something else. He brought it. He already had the colors and the logo together. I just took the colors from the butterfly and turned it into the basket.
Yeah, well done. Well done.
Thank you.
I like it a lot. That's great. So, Abby, tell me where we are right now in the conversation brings me to, Michael had the 1, 2, 3. I want to hear your 1, 2, 3. We have people watching that are going to be wondering, how do I clarify my website? Like you said, for his message, how do I take my website and, as you say on your website, how do I fix the problem of, people come there, but they are not necessarily converting. So how do I help people, to convert? So let me ask you to give me kind of your 3-step process for people. What 3 things do you want them to do, other than, of course, calling and hiring you, to think about, the conversion process and what they need to be considering? Let's give some folks a good takeaway today, what they can be thinking about.
Sure. So I'll do that, and I'll give you one extra. I know the homepage is also something that people struggle with, so I'll end with some tips on that. But as far as the 3 things that I do, my web design development process is 3 phases. How convenient. Phase 1 is all about collecting data. There's so much data out there. There is no need to guess what will or will not work on your website. So step 1 is collecting data. There are 2 ways that I do this primarily. One, if your website does not get a lot of traffic, then you can send surveys to people in your network. Say, hey, do you mind looking at my website? And just have 3 to 4 questions to ask them. It could revolve around, hey, do you understand the product? Do you understand the service? What are the benefits? Whatever you're trying to fix on the website, ask questions and try and get feedback on that.
Okay.
So you can do that. If you have a lot of traffic, like 1,000 plus visitors on your website per month, then you can use software like Crazy Egg or even Hotjar. And what software like that does is it creates a visualization of the data and the user behavior that's happening on your website. So, for example, you can get screen recordings from these softwares. You can also get heat maps, which is basically, it will color code your website.
Yep.
And the sections of the website that are white hot or red, okay, a lot of people are stopping and reading here. If there are sections that are like starting to get blue and indigo, okay, people are just scrolling past this. What can I do to improve the attention here? Or you can think of, if this is a section where there's a lot of focus, that's probably a good place to put a call to action.
Right.
So we want to collect your data. You don't want to guess what's working, what's not working. And the last thing you want to do is try to fix something that's not broken. So first things first, do your research. Step 2 is you want to consider the brand messaging and the content. So in order to make your website feel unique, you want to infuse it with your brand, right? What's the voice? Are you like Old Spice, where you're lighthearted and funny and macho and you don't take yourself too seriously? Or are you on the other end of the spectrum with Apple, where you're more minimalist and edgy and you just try and present yourself as someone who's always on the cutting edge? Whatever that is, you want to narrow that down. And once you have that, then you want to think about the story. So again, Don Miller has a great framework for creating your brand story, and I like to use this with my clients as well. You basically want to think about, who are my customers? Create your customer profiles, because when you're writing copy, you want to write to a specific person. If you're trying to appeal to everyone, you're appealing to no one. So think about who your customers are and write to them. And don't worry about being too exclusive, because when the only way that you can write copy that will connect is if you're writing to someone that you have in mind. If you're trying to write to a huge crowd, it's just going to fall flat. It'll feel generic. People will come there like, oh, it's not for me, that kind of thing. So know your customer, know the voice, and then know the story. Like, what's the transformation? And definitely you want to focus on the benefits when you're writing. You don't want to say, these are my services. This is about me. We're an award-winning this. We're transformative. We're innovative. You want to talk about your product and service from the customer's perspective. They want to know, how are you going to make them a better person, right? People buy a better version of themselves. They should never have to guess what that better version looks like working with you. So you want to make that very clear and succinct and to the point on your website. So that's phase 2, brand messaging.
Okay, so that's 2. Now we're number 3.
3 is,
and I'm going to hold you to the bonus one. So
yeah, you're right. 3 is, now that you have all that strategy, you go ahead and design and you build it. The software that I use Figma to create wireframes, which is basically the blueprint. And then once I've done that, I like to use Webflow to create the websites. But there are so many different software and programs out there that you can use to actually build the website. It's really up to you. So that's my 3 phases. Number 1, research.
So let me ask you, is Webflow the CMS, or is that what you're building it in?
It's both. So it's like Squarespace in that you build the websites on it, but it does also have a CMS as well.
I got you. Okay.
With blogs and things.
All right. So you were about to recap, and I interrupted you. You were going to lead us down the path to the bonus number 4. So take it away.
So just a summary, phase 1 is getting the research. Phase 2 is getting the messaging and the customer profiles down. Phase 3 is actually implementation, so designing and developing the website. Now, I know the page that I get the most questions about, that people really struggle with, is the home page. And I used to also really struggle with this too, because it's a fine line. You don't want to say too much, but you also want to be informative. So how do you walk that line? So for me, I think about it in terms of questions that the customer would have when they're walking through the website. So the first question I like to answer is, what do you do? Why should I, from like the customer's perspective, they're like, okay, what do you do? Why should I care? Do other people care? How do you do what you say you do? How will this benefit me? And then you want to show social proof, and you want to have a call to action. And this is basically how I was able to craft Mike's website. Is I used that formula, just answered the questions and made it super simple. It broke everything down. I could take the hour-long conversation that I had with him and just pull out what I needed, stick it into this framework. Really, really helps. Now, you can always add and take away from this, but it's a great starting place when you're trying to write a homepage that people will be able to follow.
Just in case anybody did not pick up those three, let me show folks too that you can find that 3-step phase right on your website. So yep. It's right there, which, supports what you just said before, which is, be direct about what it is you do and how you do it. And I think that's pretty great. So, but, I've learned a ton today. And I think the thing that always gets me as the host of all of this is, I have a website that I need to redo, and I'm working very hard to clarify what it is that I am and what I offer outside of my, my work in the media business where I work with ANC. There's other aspects. And so I got to go back and listen to our conversation today as I try to reform that and what I offer people. A couple of comments that came in. One is from David here, who says, if your business is diverse, can you use multiple home pages or landing pages so you can create more specific content? David, I love that question, because it really comes right down to what I was just asking about myself, which I do so many different things. How do I turn that into something? So, Abby, how would you answer David's question?
So I'm going to assume when you say you do a bunch of different things, like you have multiple services or you have multiple products. The way that I would address that would be on the homepage. Think about that one message that you want to be known for. Like, what is the one transformation that your entire brand revolves around? And that's a hard question to answer. And honestly, when I was trying to do this for myself, I went to other people for help. So definitely talk with customers, talk with other people who might have more branding experience to figure out what is that core message that your brand revolves around. And you want to focus on that with your homepage. However, I think it's a good idea to have specific pages for different services or different products or even different markets. So for example, I worked with a SaaS company last fall, and there were 3 main market segments that they wanted to work with, right? The product was the one SaaS product. However, there was marketing teams, sales teams, and internal communications. So we created a page for each of those. And on the page, we tailored it to, okay, our product, this is how our product would work really well for you if you're in marketing or you if you're internal communications. So try and find the common denominator on the homepage. So that way you're still getting that core message across, but you can also lead people and point them in different directions. Like, hey, if you are in marketing, you should check out this page.
Yeah, that's great. Well, David, I hope that helped. And certainly, again, I'm listening really, really carefully because I have a similar issue myself. So I'm going to put another comment up here. And this is a gentleman who I know his business. And, he makes a great point. When you've been in business as long as he has, my site is over 400 pages. We're working it now with the story brand concept. But to your point, when you have 400 pages on a website, in this case, Steve is not creating a website. he's kind of cleaning up years and years of a very successful business. So maybe give that a shot real quick, Abby. What would you say to Steve?
Sure. So I think the core pages that are good for a website to have would be the home page, an about page, products / sales, like whatever your services are, you can have a page dedicated to that.
Well, let me be fair to tell you, his service is puppets and for things related to the magic of movement, things like that. So it's not like it's not like he's selling insurance or premiums or things like that. He's selling puppets to performers around the world. So I'm sorry I took that away from you, but
no, that's helpful.
Yeah.
So I think with e-commerce websites or blogs, you're going to have a lot of pages. That's kind of the nature of it. Like I'm sure Amazon has thousands upon thousands of pages, right? But they still have their core pages, like the main landing page, their about page, the account information page. It looks different depending on your industry, but I would start to focus on those core pages that you want. So the home page, about page, your contact page, and if you have a blog, your blog page, and also if you have products, that. And then once you figure out your core pages and you narrow things down, you can build out from there. That helps.
Yeah.
Another thing to think about is with the website, you want to think about the big picture, right? Like there's the before, like where are people coming from and what stage of the buyer journey are they in? And you want to be able to address all of those stages if possible, right? And then you have the actual website. What is the goal? And what is that conversion that you want people to do? And then you're sending them somewhere. Yep. In your case, the final transaction, if it's e-commerce, actually happens on the website. So you're sending them to the cart. Whereas in my case, the transaction does not happen on the website. I'm trying to send them to a phone conversation with me. So you can think about it in those three phases: the before, what happens on the website, and where you're sending them.
Hey, Steve, give me permission. Can I bring your website up here on the recording? Let me know. You just put his URL up there. I'm just going to see if it's okay that I go ahead and put it up there and just show you real quick.
I'm on the hot seat.
No, you're not on the hot seat just because, when I say to the audience, he's in the puppet business, they're like, what? And in fact, Steve's a longtime friend of mine, and we're going to actually be on his live stream a little bit later on. So that's interesting. Here's Reiner says hello. So that's cool. So Steve's giving me permission. So give me a second. I'm going to take us to his website, and I think it's really an interesting thing to bring this up here. In fact, Steve, I'm going to go ahead and send you a link right now, and if you are available, go ahead and click on the link and join our conversation. It's as simple as that, my friend. So I'm going to do some quick fancy finger movements around here, and we'll do that. So what I'm going to do, I'll tell you what, let me do this. Let me put the Axtel website up on the screen. So you can take a look at it, and then I'm going to go ahead and send Steve a link to what we've got here, and this will be really interesting. We certainly are, and I know you've got a time crunch. If you got to go, I respect that, but there is the homepage, Abby. So take a look at that, and I'm going to send Steve a link, and if I know him, I think he'll join us without a hitch. But we'll see if maybe he can't do that presently. So, but I'll keep an eye out for Steve showing up here. So there's the website. What do you see?
Okay, so when I'm thinking about this from a design perspective, you want to have a focal point, like a visual. You want to establish visual hierarchy. So what is it that I should be looking at? There's like so many pictures. There's like the headlines are kind of blending in with everything. So there's a lot happening. So I'd want to clean that up a bit, just so that from a visual perspective, from a visual standpoint, that way people know, okay, this is what I should be looking at first, and this is what is the most important thing on this section that I'm looking at. Right now, it's kind of hard to tell what is it that you want me to look at right away. Right.
But I marvel because Steve says awful here, and that couldn't be further from the truth because the guy is extremely successful at what he does. So I think that it works, but just now it's time. And I get it, Steve. It's time to update. If I remember, your website is not responsive. So that's another question you'd probably have for somebody, right, Abby? Is that if it's not a responsive site, what do you hope to accomplish? How can you be responsive? For those who don't know what that means, that is, if I look at Abby's website on my laptop, my desktop, what's it going to look like on my phone What's it going to look like on an iPad? What's going to look like on, an Amazon Fire of all places, which that's popping up more and more. So, so that's, and let me take you a little bit deeper into, what this is. So, there is that website. He does an amazing job of reaching out to people on social media. Just to give you an example of what the product line is, to your point, I mean, Steve has a lot of product line here, an awful lot. And, how he wants to direct people seems like an opportunity, for him to utilize that organizational, commentary to give. I have to laugh. He's got his people puppets. We see one there, that he's about to be replaced with a new one. He's literally sculpting, if I could be that fast, a Joe Biden puppet. But that's a great look at all that this business offers. And he sells internationally. He sells from all over the world. So it's kind of cool that that Steve joined us here today. And I don't know that Steve can join us. We're going to wrap up here in just a few minutes because I know you've got to go. So if he doesn't hop on, that's okay. But great advice, Abby, for that homepage of what you would do, with the Axtel Expressions website. Bring some clarity to the front, help people understand what you want them to do. I think the one thing that's cool about this, I'm not sure he's going to have it on this page even yet, but Steve's working also on animatronics for things like restaurants that want to have animatronics playing in the background. So very, very cool. But so with that, I mean, that's a really great example of what you can do to help clarify, and maybe you guys will, connect with each other at some point.
Sure.
Cool stuff. That's great. Well, Abby, it has been an absolute delight to have you here today. It's in your mailbox, Steve. He just asked me, where's the invite? It's going to be on your email. I sent it to, let me just tell you where I sent it. For those of you at home, I'm sure this is really exciting, but I sent it to your address at Axtel. So go ahead and click on that when you get it, and we can have you on here real quick to chat about that. But Abby, so today we've covered a bunch of stuff, and conversion is really the king and queen of all. I mean, content is king and queen, right? But getting people to convert, to do that, people need to have a plan, right? Do you help them with the schematic of what it is to get a person to show an interest and then buy something?
Yeah. So it depends on the buyer stage of awareness. Okay, so what I mean by that is, if you're familiar with Eugene Schwartz, he's a copywriter from like the 50s and 60s, and he broke it down. There are 5 stages. Mm-hmm. So that ranges from, I have no idea who you are, what you're doing, I don't even know that I have a problem,
right,
to people who know they have a problem, but I don't know if you can solve it. There are people who are simply looking for multiple solutions. So the first thing you want to do is identify your ideal customer. And think about, okay, is this like a brand new product that no one knows about? Then I'm going to have to spend a lot of time persuading them and convincing them that this is something that is important, right? Whereas if it's someone that is simply looking for solutions, like they already know they have a problem and they just want something to fix it, then you don't have to spend as much time convincing them and explaining the problem. You can just get straight into this is what we do, this is how it can benefit you, etc. So you have to first start with who is your customer and how much do they know about you, and then you can move on and figure out how much copy you need to write.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. Good point. And I want to ask you one more question that it goes back to a person that I've certainly followed over the years, a guy named Michael Hyatt, who wrote a book called Platform: Getting Noticed in a Noisy World. He talks about social media, and he talks about your website, and how a lot of people make the mistake that their Facebook page, their Instagram, things like that are their website, is where they are found. Talk about that for a second, about how those are really embassies and the website's really the headquarters.
That's a great way of putting it. If you're focusing, if you're totally investing in social media, you're on rented land, right? Like over the summer, over the fall, LinkedIn made changes to their algorithm, and almost everyone saw their views go down, right? So you don't want to have all of your eggs in one basket. Another thing is that no matter how you post on LinkedIn or Facebook, it looks like a LinkedIn post. It looks like a Facebook post. Like there are specific parameters that you have to fit into. If you're using Twitter, there's a character limit, right? And so with a website, however, you can have it look however you want. It can sound however you want, and you can work with SEO to get more people to visit and to build the traffic on there in a way that works best for your business. Like my website, as you guys saw, is teal with gold fonts and white font. Like it looks, you get on the website and you land, and it's a very specific look and a brand that people can remember. And so that was something that I was very intentional with. Things like that you can do on Facebook or LinkedIn, and that's how you can really get your brand to stick in people's minds, is by doing those little things to help you stand out and help improve that brand recognition.
And I noticed you have a blog on your site. Does blogging still carry the weight that it had for SEO and being discovered before, or where is Google kind of ranking that now? From someone who spent a lot of time blogging, it did help with content creation, like you said. You start noticing things that you might not otherwise notice if you weren't blogging or creating content. You go, ooh, that makes a great blog post. But how about from the standpoint of just SEO and what it does for the website? Is blogging what it was before, or are we on to something different?
No, it's definitely something that you can use to really, really push a lot of traffic to your website. There are so many examples on LinkedIn of people who have really doubled, tripled, 10x their traffic with content, and there's a lot of strategy that goes into it. As the algorithm gets smarter and smarter, you have to be a bit more strategic with what you're doing. But there's so much content out there as far as like tips and tricks on how to write blogs, how to do keyword research. So it is definitely still a major driver of traffic.
Still a thing.
Totally,
Yeah. Well, that's good to know. And the other thing to really bring up here too is, and I think Steve's speaking to this. In fact, it looks like he's trying to join us right now. That people's websites, my website. I'll talk about my website for a second. Very much so. It's just my name, algatlo.com. I call it an abandoned WordPress site, right? I built it. I think I did a decent job building it. It still looks okay, but on the back end, it has fallen apart because it's on a theme that's no longer supported, and so therefore. It just doesn't, even all that blog information, all that, it's just, even when I go to Google and have it crawl, the theme is no longer kind of up there and supporting it. So
that's one of the reasons why I don't like WordPress.
Oh, really? So tell us why that is, because I'm a WordPress fan.
Because of what you just said, because of things like that, like your theme becomes out of date. If you update the plugins, your site might crash, but if you don't update the plugins, your site might crash. Or you kind of need to have someone in your pocket who understands WordPress development in case, worst case scenario, there's a bug on your website and you don't know how to fix it. Or like with the templates, it can be very restrictive. That's just
okay.
me.
All right. So there's that.
It works for plenty of people though.
Then there's, and I get it. But then there are people that tell me that, don't do Wix, don't do Squarespace because they actually own your website.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right?
I'm not a huge fan of Squarespace or Wix either. I think they work. I really prefer Webflow because I think it's the best of both worlds. Like you have a really great CMS, but there are no restrictions from like a developer standpoint. So like WordPress, if you have a theme, you might not be able to change the footer, or you might not be able to move the sections around in the way that you want, and you're restricted in that way. Whereas for me as a developer, I never want to have a conversation with a client where they're like, oh, I actually would like my website to look a bit like this. And I would have to be like, oh, sorry, but like the WordPress template won't let me do that. Whereas with Webflow, it's almost like you're writing.
Yeah, I liken a little bit to PC versus Mac. I got to keep my PC constantly clean, do a lot of work, and I do know that, and I kind of like that, and it's interesting. So Steve's trying to join us. I don't see video. Steve, let's just see audio wise. Steve, are you there? Nope. Unfortunately, he's got the spinning circle of death
Yeah,
There,
I
yeah,
was gonna
yeah,
say
yeah,
that.
yeah. So I do know Steve's in California, and I do know that they were shut down power wise for the wildfire situation where he is in Ventura, California. So he might be having a hard time connecting, and that's the case. Well, Abby, look, I know I can't keep you any longer because that baby's going to wake up and the whole thing's going to get ruined. And the baby's is it a what is the baby's name? What is
Halima.
Halima, little girl? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, great. Yeah. Well, that's fantastic. We have 3 daughters, so I get it, and I get nap time. And by the way, you don't want to interrupt my nap time. Let me just be real clear about that. Yeah, I'm a big believer in it's synonymous with my last name. It must mean nap in some other language because it's an art form in my family. So, well, listen, I want to put it up here one more time. If you want to reach out to the fabulous Abby Wilson. I loved your deadpan just now. Fix the plugs, it'll clap. Don't plug-ins, don't fix it. That's what's great about your humor. It's great. The website is tailor-framed.com, right? Yes. Don't forget the dash. Really important.
Yes.
People can reach out to you. They can have a conversation. Like I say about conversion, you don't have to get married on the first date. You can certainly talk and figure it out and figure it out and figure it out until you finally commit. I get it. Building a website is a big deal for people. And getting it right is so important. And I'm going to beg people, having built a few websites for people, if you're going to hire somebody like Abby to do that, please follow up with the content that she needs to build the website.
Yes, please.
Am I right about that? I mean, is that not like, yeah. It's crazy. It is crazy. Well, Abby, thank you so much for being here today. I appreciate it. I want to say a proper goodbye to you. So I'm going to have you head backstage here for a minute, and I'm going to say goodbye to the audience, and we'll be able to say goodbye to one another. Take care, Abby. Thanks.
Take care. Bye.
Bye. Well, I'll tell you, there's something about Abby that just really strikes me. She's very smart, and she's very funny. And she's got a very dry wit. So what a great guest. I learned a bunch today, folks. Hopefully you did as well. This week, I will be back with some other guests. Tomorrow, I have my friend Michael Andrew joining us from the Middle East. He's going to be joining us at about 9 o'clock his time, 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. He is a leadership guy that I met back in the Boston area, I think actually at Merrimack College, and he and I became fast friends. And he's been on an assignment in the Middle East now for over a decade, I believe. And he's got some great stories to tell. He's talking about LinkedIn posts. LinkedIn posts. Michael Andrew, if you look him up, he's got some killer video on some great leadership subjects. So he's going to be joining us tomorrow. So watch out for that. Go ahead and remind yourself on LinkedIn and on Facebook and on YouTube to join us for that. And by the way, I want to remind folks too that if you would like to be a guest, or if you have someone you think would be a nice guest for this conversation, go ahead and have them reach out to me. I see things on LinkedIn all the time. I reach out to people. I saw a fantastic presentation the other day that people were doing to sell their product, and I've reached out to them, and they're going to be joining me in the future here too. So with that, thank you all very much for being here today. It has been absolutely my pleasure, and I'll see you here soon, hopefully tomorrow. And let's take you out of here with the closing of the show.